Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ginny Ray Clay. I am the Interim Executive Director of the Social Equity Council. If you have joined us before, you know who I am and my cast of characters today. We have Rod Marriott, Director of Drug Control from the Department of Consumer Protection. Rod is going to do a presentation today on the lottery, the Social Equity Lottery, probably one of the biggest subjects right now in the adult cannabis use industry or adult cannabis area in Connecticut right now. We also have on the panel today Kamla Matrivi, who is the staff attorney for the Social Equity Council, Jennifer Edwards, program manager for the Social Equity Council, Diana Shaw. Diana, what's Diana's title?
She's a health program supervisor for the adult use cannabis program.
So Diana Shaw, supervisor with the Department of Consumer Protection, and of course our technical guru, Paige Rashid. So welcome all. Today, again, as I mentioned, today's presentation is going to be discussing the lottery. We will have the presentation, and once the presentation is over, we will ask you to put your questions in the Q&A, and we will do our best to answer them. Should you have questions after, you can send social equity questions related to criteria and social equity information to sec@ct.gov. If you have regulatory questions around the cannabis industry, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, the application, the lottery itself, you can send those questions to dcp.cannabis@ct.gov. So without further ado, Rod, I'm going to let you do what you do so well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ginny. Good to be here again, and I hope everyone's getting good value out of these seminars. And thanks to Diana and my team in the office who supports these with all the good information in the slide deck. So I will start sharing this now. And I just want to make sure, can everyone see my screen there?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. All right, understanding the lottery process. So first, we're going to start with the schedule. This is a slide that looks probably very similar to people that have attended this before, but these are the opening and closing dates of our application periods. Of note, this slide may look a little different in that the social equity cultivator is not a lottery, and therefore it is italicized for this purpose. But those are the dates, and the lotteries are run after the closing date of the application period for each of the different credential types available in this program. Excuse me. So our first lottery round is going to have these number of applications are going to be selected from the lottery. You'll notice here that the social equity lottery and general lottery numbers are equal. It's the way the statute is written to have an equal distribution between the two lotteries. Here are the fees for the lottery, provisional, and final applications for each one of these different credential types. And there's a 50% fee reduction for social equity lottery applicants. So for the first round, applicants have 90 days to submit a lottery application and pay the associated fee. And they have to have all of their backers submit their applications prior to the closing of the application date. All documents listed in the initial application must be submitted, but there are some caveats to that. At certain times, those documents aren't required for that particular license type or for the particular individual. So if you're a sole proprietor, you may not have articles of incorporation, things like that. And there's an opportunity to explain those as well. And there are things like some of the business formation documents with Secretary of the State and the tax and revenue. We ask about them. You don't have to necessarily put them in right away. All backers listed in the lottery applications have to complete their backer application. Those that do not complete it prior to the end of the lottery may not be reviewed as part of the social equity or part of any review of the applications, and may cause your application to be in jeopardy. But it's important to get those in before the application timeline. It's also important to note here that if you're a backer backing multiple different applicants for the lottery, you only need one backer license, and you just need to go in and complete an update to link yourself back to those other types. You don't need to create a separate account for each backer. The lottery window closes. And the other thing, sorry, not to jump ahead of myself, is that the backers have to be individuals. They cannot be businesses. Backers can be dropped, but cannot be added once the application is submitted. Once the lottery window closes, the third-party lottery operator will run the social equity lottery first, and then once that lottery is complete, we'll run the general lottery with that individual, or that individual credential. So for the social equity lottery, we have the application period. All applicants submit in that 90-day window. It's important to understand that all the applications are received in that. So whether it's a general lottery application or someone that's identified themselves as a social equity lottery applicant, they all submit during that window. Once the window closes, the Department of Consumer Protection will take all of the individuals that have identified themselves as social equity applicants and put those numbers into a group and notify the third-party lottery operator how many applications we received for social equity lottery and how many will be selecting or will get selected from that lottery. The lottery operator will then conduct the social equity lottery after the close of the application period for each license type. The lottery operator will rank the applications sequentially based on how they're kind of generated, and submit to us those that were selected from the lottery. So if the lottery has a total of 5 social equity applicants to be selected from it, number 1 through 5 will be sent over to us, and then we will provide those documents to the Social Equity Council for review. So once we've sent that over, the social equity applicants will get reviewed to see if they meet the social equity criteria defined by the statute and the council. If that person does meet the application criteria, they move forward to the disqualifying criteria review. So that's pretty much the background check portion of the application. If that person does not meet or that applicant and their backers do not meet the social equity criteria, the applicant will be receive communication from the Social Equity Council and the department. And if that person wants to choose to go into the general lottery, they can do so, but they have to pay the fee difference for that lottery application, and they have 5 business days to do that. And that application will be moved into the general lottery. When the applicant does not meet the social equity criteria, the Social Equity Council will notify us, and we will also notify the applicant, and the council will also notify the applicant of whether they have been accepted as a social equity applicant. If that person does not meet that criteria, we go back to the third-party lottery operator and ask them to provide the next ranked application in order. And so we can do that as many times as we need to achieve. We'll just stick with the number 5. So say in the first round, two individual applicants or 2 cannabis establishment applicants don't meet social equity criteria. The department will ask the third-party lottery operator to get us 2 more applications for review. We'll do that until we get the total number of 5, or we run out of lottery applications. If we don't achieve that, we will move to reduce the total number of social equity applicants available, and the same number will carry over into the general lottery. So the Social Equity Council, so this is an example of what could happen. The Social Equity Council receives 6 applications in the lottery. After review, 4 of them are found not to meet the criteria. The 4 approved applications will then move on to be removed by DC or reviewed, by DCP for disqualifying criteria. The 2 applicants who are not approved will be notified that they do not qualify, and they'll have an opportunity to pay. Simultaneously, the department will request the next 2, and those 2 new applications selected from the lottery will move back to, or move to for the first time, the Social Equity Council for review. And here's just a little flow chart of that. And once those reviews have been completed, if the applicant has a disqualified backer, there's a 30-day window where that backer may be removed. But it's important to understand that if that backer is deceased for some reason, the applicant can restructure that application and their business organization. But they have a limited time to do so. They have 30 days to do that. And then once it's reviewed, the applicant has 60 days to complete their provisional application. If it is determined that an applicant is selected in the lottery but that person has been disqualified as a backer, the applicant may remove that disqualified backer and restructure the organization within 30 days, unless the backer removal would result in an applicant no longer qualifying as a social equity applicant, or would create another disqualifying criteria. An applicant selected in the social equity lottery with a disqualified backer that has restructured their organization will have their organizational structure reviewed by the Social Equity Council. If an applicant selected in the lottery has a disqualified backer and does not submit a restructure or qualify after the restructure is reviewed, and the department will select the next ranked lottery selection from the third-party lottery operator. This process will be repeated until the maximum number of lottery applicants have been selected and approved. So after the social equity lottery has proceeded, we move on to the general lottery. General lottery applicants, the general lottery consists of general lottery applicants, those that have not identified themselves as a social equity applicant. The social equity applicants not selected in the social equity lottery, and the social equity applicants selected in the social equity lottery that did not meet the social equity criteria and pay the fee difference. DCP then, much like the social equity lottery, provides the third-party lottery operator with the total number of applications received and how many will be selected. The lottery operator conducts the general lottery in the same manner as the social equity lottery. The lottery operator ranks the applications and provides DCP with a list of selected applicants. It's important to understand that the ranking is just really a numerical ranking. It has no, there's no review is occurring up to this point. And so it's just a number sequencing. The number of applications selected in the general lottery cannot be more than the total number of applications selected in the social equity lottery. This kind of refers to what I was speaking to earlier, in that if we say we're going to select 5 applications and for some reason we can't get more than 4 in the social equity lottery, we'll only select 4 from the general lottery. This slide probably looks familiar to people that have seen these presentations before. So once we've selected the lottery applicants, we will look at them for background check and other qualifications, ownership and duplicate ownership. Qualified applicants will then move forward and have 60 days to complete the provisional license application and submit the fee and all supporting documentation. Applicants that are disqualified have the opportunity to remove the backer that may be has that disqualifying conviction within 30 days and potentially restructure their business and then the provisional license with the completed documents there. Important to remember that The number of applicants selected in the general lottery cannot exceed the number of applicants selected in the social equity lottery. Applicants selected in the general lottery must pay full provisional, final, and renewal licensing fees, regardless of whether or not they applied as a social equity applicant. The provisional license applicants selected in the lottery that do not have disqualified backers or have removed backers will be able to apply for the provisional license. The license status in our e-licensing system will be pending initial application approved. Qualified applicants have 60 days to log into e-license to complete the provisional license application. So it's important that you maintain your e-license credentials, your new username and password for that business. But we'll email that to you as part of the process as well. Provisional licenses, once they're awarded, are expire 14 months after issuance and cannot be renewed. Final license. The applicant has 14 months to complete the final license application and meet all the requirements and pay the final licensing fee. The provisional license cannot be renewed or reissued. Can't say that enough. The licensed activities may not begin until final license has been issued. And part of that licensing part is a complete inspection. I'll go through that here. Final licensing documentation requirements include, but are not limited to, a contract with the approved electronic tracking system, right to occupy a location of the establishment, local zoning approval, labor peace agreement, certification of a project labor agreement, social equity plan approved by the council, workforce development plan approved by the council. The council means the social equity council here. Policies preventing diversion, misuse, and underage sales, all other security requirements, and a satisfactory final inspection. So that completes our presentation today for the lottery process. As always, you can email dcp.cannabis@ct.gov. And large amount of information provided in this presentation today is available at ct.gov/cannabis. Now we will be moving to our question and answer portion. And I see a couple questions in there already. So I'll stop sharing my screen. We can go to the questions.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you very much. Very good presentation. Jennifer is answering a question right now. Has there been any changes to the required documents to prove social equity status qualifications? The posted documents on the website for income and residency say revised 114 indicates many documents must be notarized. I've heard notarization is no longer required, but don't see any, don't see that anywhere. So there was one document on the income that was mistakenly listed as, or appeared to be required, and it was the income statement, or I think it was the income statement from a notarized income statement from your employer. That is not a required document, but the list of requirements and documents are updated and they appear on the Social Equity Council website. You can find that information at ct.gov/Social Equity Council. So I'm not sure, please don't go by things that you're hearing. I would strongly recommend, if you have questions, that you send those questions to the Social Equity Council at sec@ct.gov. Don't go by what you're hearing on the street or what someone told you. Send that question in to us. We will tell you where to find the most updated and accurate information. It says, thank you. The application question 17, 18, and 19 is for formation, incorporation, and has them as required. 17 is data formation, incorporation. 18 asks what type of company, and 19 asks for place. I think that was being answered. Rod, did you wanna?
Yeah, so in those, it depends on the type of business you are. If you haven't done anything to form your business, but intend to have that, and you're a social equity applicant, you're going to need all of that information to be completed, because those articles are articles that are requested by the council to understand the business structure. But as far as if you're a sole proprietor, you wouldn't have to answer those questions. If you can't answer the question at the time and you're a general lottery applicant, you can submit a document that says, this formation has not been completed. You just have to have that information prior to the closing of your final license, really. But we don't want people to wait till the last minute on those. You really should start thinking about those and starting to understand what that looks like.
Good point, Rod, because I know that you had mentioned before in the lottery, when you are submitting your application, there are certain areas that information is required and you cannot go forward. If the information that is being asked of you is not relevant to your business structure, you should submit a document that says not relevant, list the document, and submit not relevant, not applicable, or is in formation. So with just a brief explanation, upload that and it will allow you to move forward in completing the application.
So there is a question about multiple applications. Yes, multiple applications can be submitted by an applicant. It's what, and the question is whether that's fair. That's the way the statute is written. It did not prohibit multiple applications from the same applicant, but that's just the way we have to operate the lottery. The numerical ranking is an algorithm that is going to randomly define or select numbers to create a ranking system.
To prove I lived in a disproportionate area, I can submit school records and insurance policy records. I think it's a question. You'll need to look at the documents that are acceptable. I do not recall insurance policies being an acceptable form of residency requirement, but again, on the social equity website, you can find the acceptable documents for proving income verification and ownership and control. For the lottery application, could you explain what information needs to be included for the personal net worth statement? So if the personal net worth statement, so let's go back to that list. So the documents that are required for ownership and control are the documents that show your business, okay, the business structure, that you have formed a business or you're in the process of forming a business. The personal net worth statement, it's an option. If you have it, you submit it. If you do not, you do not have to submit that documentation. If you need that documentation to show that you are the owner and controlling, if that's going to support your case or support your verification, then you would submit that information.
There was a question that of just about the timing. As soon as the application period closes, we're going to make sure we review the results, verify the data for the number of applications received, and then hope to run the lottery as soon as possible after that. Hoping to have that done within at least the first kind of pass at the lottery within 2 weeks or so, depending on how things go and the third-party lottery operator. So it's not a hard fast time, but we do want to keep everything moving along here. The next question is, if a social equity applicant submits 2 applications, can they choose to move one to the general lottery and not pay an additional fee if they don't get chosen? So if you put in 2 applications and none get selected, you automatically move to the general lottery. If you put in 2 applications and 1 gets selected, the other application moves into the general lottery. If the SC application doesn't get selected or doesn't meet SC criteria, social equity criteria, then that application has an option to move into the general lottery upon payment of the fee.
Will the lottery be public? Will we be able to, e.g. the drawing? I don't know what that means.
No, the lottery is not going to be a publicly run lottery.
Can you please clarify the income eligibility on the social equity? Is it 3 times the median income? And how do you account for the size of the family? Okay, so the for household median income, the household median income is set at a specific dollar amount, and that is $78,444, regardless of household size. So we wanted to make that very easy for you. The way that we calculate the household income and the 300% is we take that 78,444 and we multiply that times 3. That gives you $235,332. That is the maximum your household can earn, regardless of size, to be eligible to fall in the income criteria. So, when you're calculating your income, you are only looking at those folks that live in your household, regardless of relationship, that are 21 years or older. I'm actually going to be doing an office hours on income. I think it's this afternoon, today at 4 o'clock. You should have received information about office hours, and I will be answering questions. There's not a presentation. I am just available to answer questions related to income verification and criteria, and we will only be talking about income. We won't be talking about the other criteria. I have a residency office hours on Thursday at 4 o'clock, the 17th at 4 o'clock. You should have received information on that. If you don't and you'd like to join that, you have some questions, and that's going to be depending on how many folks sign up. The last time I did it, we had dialogue, so you were actually allowed. We were allowed to talk to each other. So today at 4, we'll talk about income. Thursday at 4, we'll talk about residency. Let's see. Okay, for residency, we have a lease that is subscribed and sworn before a lawyer. Since the lawyer is considered a notary by the Commissioner of Superior Court, yes, attorneys are officers of the court. They do act as notaries. So yes, you can submit that. We have here, both partners are from disproportionately affected areas with the class B offense on record. How would the 65% split go? Could they total 65% ownership requirements or one primary? No, you can have multiple applicants to make up the 65%. So if you have 2 people that are going to split the 65, they both need to qualify as social equity applicants. Okay, and it says here, for residency, leases also specified as having to be notarized. Is this accurate or not really? Here, not really need to be notarized. I don't know if the documents on the website, I don't recall that specifically. If it doesn't say notarized on the criteria on our website, it's not required. If it states that a notarized lease, then you'll have to submit a notarized lease. And as the person before just said, if you can't find a notary, you can ask an attorney. Okay, it says to follow up, how does that compare to someone that is single versus Mr. Michael, I guess it's Darnell Michael, it's regardless of household size. So it doesn't matter if your family is bigger or smaller. So if you're a single person, it's even across the board. So it doesn't matter. Well, I guess it kind of does. If your household income, if you're single and your household income doesn't exceed 3235, 332, then you're eligible. If your household size it is outside of that, bypasses the threshold, unfortunately, you're not eligible. And if you're not eligible in one category, you're not eligible in any categories. So if you're over income, you would not be qualified as a social equity applicant. You must meet all three.
There's a question that actually just answered with a link in the chat, but about the fees. There are 3 fees to get your initial license: a lottery fee, a provisional fee, and a final license fee. And then annually there's renewal fees. Once you've been selected and get into the provisional stage, all your backers have fees as well for their credentialing. And that will all go, those fees will go back to the cannabis establishment.
There's another question about, are EJVs going to be limited after this application window or during this application window? Also, if we submit a EJV and we do not get a provisional, by the time the change will, I don't know, time the change will still be granted a provisional? I don't quite understand the question. So let me just say that we are not making, and Rod, you can help me with this, we are not making changes to anything at this point. The application period is open. The legislation is what it is. So there are no changes to the legislation at this time. If there are changes after the session, we will certainly let you know. But the way that we set it out is the way that it's being operated right now.
Yeah, so currently there is no restriction on the volume or time window for an equity joint venture. I believe, though, that the provisional application and final application windows do exist still. So if you don't get your application completed through provisional in the 60 days, or don't get your final through 14 months, you may not be able to proceed. And to Jenny's point, we're not really sure what's going to happen during the session, and so stay tuned for that. The session ends in May 4th, I believe, this year, and so we'll kind of know at least some more at that point.
We just said it. We believe the session ends around May 4th. What fees do the backers have to pay after the final license that get put back into the cannabis business? I just want to have the numbers correct for my backer.
Sure, I believe those fees are $100 per person. But I'll get that from the website as well. And just, so everyone knows that when you look at each one of the credential types, we have discrete pages for each credential type, which goes over the fees for each credential and kind of the rhythm for them. So, these are annual renewals for these credentials as well. But I'm putting the backer fees in there. It's really important to take advantage of some of that information on our website. Because the website is available even when we are not.
And I'll tell you the websites again, ct.gov/social equity council and ct.gov/cannabis. So it's like a statement question. I'm not quite sure. It says your income does exceed 235K a year. So if your household income exceeds $235,332, you have passed the income threshold. If your household income calculated with all those living in the household, regardless of relationship, that are 21 and older, if your income does not exceed 235,332, you fall within the income range.
There's a question about the medical marijuana card. Medical marijuana cards have no bearing on the application at all. That information is considered totally separate from the adult use cannabis program.
And there was a question there, when does the general lottery start?
The general lottery starts shortly after the completion of the social equity lottery. So it depends on how many times we have to go back to the pool of applicants, which depends on a number of things, including the review from social equity. So it's just kind of it all depends on when those first applications are accepted and we can meet those numbers.
And the question is, if we are approved for an EJV, are we eligible to still put in for the lottery, or is there a restriction? I do not believe there are restrictions.
So there's no restriction, there's no prohibition on you entering the lottery. There are ownership and control limitations, and I believe that comes into section 40 of the bill, but I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. But ultimately, there are ownership restrictions and volume. Yes, and section 40 is where those EJV, well, where all the ownership and control limitations are for backers. One thing I should point out there is that EJVs do not count against the cap.
Okay, similar to the personal net worth statement, bank authorization information and operation agreements, if you have it. So again, you are trying to show the Social Equity Council that you own and operate your business. Okay, this business that you're going to be getting a license for. You need to provide all documentation that you have that will show us that you own and operate this business. So the bank authorization cards, it's usually the owner, it's usually the president. And if you have a board, it's probably the president and the treasurer who must sign. So bank authorizations, if it shows that you're the president, that you're the owner of that company, that's something you can submit to support the case that you own and operate that company. Operational, what is this here? And okay, that's just, yeah. So all of those documents that are listed there are documents that will verify ownership and control of a business.
There's a question about section 40 being EJV to EJV. Yeah, I mean, so in addition to the restrictions on ownerships and backers, which will play a role in some of the application types, there is a radius restriction on the EJV, which will also limit its total kind of opportunity in the Connecticut market space just by geography.
There's a question on whether you can obtain school records from Bridgeport or the Bridgeport area from 17 years ago. We do not have that information. You'd have to check the school system the Board of Ed. Some folks went to Catholic schools. You may check the Archdiocese. But there are other documents, and again, it states that it is that or a combination of. So if you have something that shows that you lived in one place in the disproportionately impacted area and it covers you for the number of years, then you only need to submit one. If you have documents that show that you lived in the disproportionately impacted area and you lived in a couple of places and you have a couple of things that you want to submit, you have the option of doing a single approved document or multiple, a combination of the documents listed. So we can't answer any questions about local information. We don't have that. Social equity lottery consists of proof of income, proof of residency, and backers. Is that correct? The Social Equity Council set the criteria for to be a social equity applicant as income, residency, and ownership and control. You must own 65% of you or your partners who are social equity applicants must own 65% of the business and must control the business. You must have lived in a disproportionately impacted area, and your household income for the past 3 years in each year cannot exceed $235,332, regardless of household size.
Also, to that question, there are document checklists on the website to help applicants with each application type, social equity, general lottery, cultivating, micro cultivating, retailers, etc. So please make sure you take advantage of those documents as you go through that application.
Yep. Also take advantage of the dedicated email boxes if you have questions. And in many cases, we have had phone conversations with people. So don't think that you just have to email. Some things need to be discussed. Some things have to, are beneficial to have a conversation. So you can also send us an email with your phone number, ask us to give you a call, and we'd be happy to do that, or schedule a time and we'll provide you with a number to have a conversation. Okay, so are there any advisors available at all to help direct women in regards to, what happened to that question? That disappeared. Oh, okay. Women in regards to the whole process of establishing this business plan during any type of one-on-one counseling. So there is, so one of the issues we're having is because cannabis is not legal at the federal level, many of the technical assistance providers, such as the Small Business Development Center, SCORE, and the Women's Business Development Center, which are funded by the SBA, which is a federal agency, they are not allowed to participate in cannabis-related businesses. I am understanding and working right now with the Women's Business Development Center, which is located or headquartered in Stamford. You can find them if you Google Women's Business Development Center, Stamford. I'm working with them because they have a window that may be helpful for women in business. So there is a Women's Business Development Center located in Stamford. I would reach out to them and ask them what they provide as far as counseling related to cannabis businesses and or related to other businesses. So I will say to you that business plans are business plans. And it doesn't matter whether you're starting a cannabis business or you're starting, it matters when you get to the details, but generally a business plan has 9 components. And how you fill those components in, that relates to your business. So if you have questions, just some general questions about establishing a business, about establishing or putting together a business plan, you can reach out to the Small Business Development Center. You can reach out to SCORE. They just cannot advise you on the cannabis side of it, but they can certainly advise you on setting up a business structure, some information about taxes, information about organizational charts that fit just overall general business development. So reach out to those folks. In addition, there are several chambers around the state that are very much involved in the cannabis and working with folks that want to start cannabis businesses. So, the ones that I've had conversations with, and I'm sure there's others, but the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and the Norwich Chamber of Commerce are very much involved and working with folks who are trying to get their businesses up and running. So reach out to those chambers, and I'm sure they'd be able to provide you with some resources that may be able to provide you some pro bono information and some work. So those are the two chambers that I am aware of. Also, I'm sorry, the Southern Connecticut Black Chamber of Commerce, and then there's also a Connecticut Cannabis Chamber of Commerce that is starting up, but they do have some resources. Okay, social equity applicant needs to own 65% of the LLC that's applying for the license, or 65% of the marijuana license. No, the license is the license, and Rod, you could kind of talk about that. I don't think it's broken up, but it's the business. So the social equity applicant must own 65% of the business. And when you own 65% of the business, I'm sure that translates into owning the license.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the licensing process. It's 65% of the license then, I guess, in theory. I mean, that's probably more of a legal business question, but it's really, you have a business, whoever is backing that business and or doing ownership and control, you have to be registered as backers, and the business is owned by those individuals in whatever percentage or mechanism determined in the organization documents.
Another question is the Social Equity Council providing or connecting social equity applicants with loan or other funding resources? We are in fact in the process of creating access to capital and researching access to capital, but we are right now creating a low interest loan fund. As soon as that fund is done, the whole program is done, details have been added, and all approvals have been had, we will announce that, and that will be for folks who are, right now we're planning it for folks who have received provisional licenses and full licenses under the social equity lottery. So stay tuned. Our website will have information. You can ask for an update at our dedicated email address. Also, for loans and access to capital, there are some banks that are friendly to cannabis businesses. They are banks that are not federally insured, so they are community banks, as well as credit unions. So if you belong to a credit union, you may want to ask your credit union if they are doing anything in the cannabis area, or if they're even doing, business loans. You can research that. And as soon as we get a handle on the actual banks that are friendly to cannabis, we will post that information. We're actually doing the research now. We're also developing an accelerator program that will help those folks who have provisional licenses and licenses identify resources in the cannabis industry. Here's one. Since ownership means sale of business and control means running the day-to-day, profit share is used in large companies for quarterly payouts, et cetera. We are not sure if the social equity applicant needs, or I just added applicant, but needs to have the same percentage, 65 of profit share. That is a business question. How you arrange your ownership and control, that is up to you. But we do have, actually, we're going to put a definition on our website of ownership and what that means and control. That actually is going to be brought up at our policy committee meeting on Thursday. And once the policy committee reviews the definition of ownership and control, they will forward that definition to the full council for a vote, and we will post that definition on our website. An anonymous attendee, I hope I answered the question that you were asking. If not, again, you can email me and we can have a conversation. Our staff attorney will also be available to speak with you offline about that specifically. Okay, I'm the only one that applies for social equity requirements. My backer does not have to have any requirements, right? Just that they are able to back me. Is this okay? My backer makes over $225,000. Do you want to, Rod, do you want to take that one? As far as the backer is concerned, well, let me just say, as far as this, if you're the social equity applicant, then you need to meet all of the criteria. You will need to provide information, and Rod could speak to this, for anyone that owns more than 5% of the business, and as a backer. So Rod, I'll let you speak to that part.
Yeah, or any ownership or control. So the two individuals that you would identify here would both have to be set up as the backer, depending on your business structure. But I think, the one thing that I just want to say in general is that we are not permitted to give legal advice to individuals here in general, and we cannot pre-review your submissions. And so it's important to make sure that as you go through these processes, where it's appropriate, that you're seeking appropriate counsel, because at some point in time, you're going to need that professional to help you make those decisions. But we can't provide every legal advice in that manner.
And so we had a question here: how can we reach the staff attorney? So what you'll need to do is to send any questions that you have to sec@ct.gov, and then those questions will be disseminated through the staff at who is most appropriate to answer them. But please understand that the Social Equity Council staff attorney is not providing legal advice. He will clarify some questions based on the information that you give him, but he is not giving you authorization and or permission or approval in any conversation or email that is email exchange that we have. So no matter how many backers, you must also list yourself as a backer.
It depends on your business structure. So it's hard to kind of fully answer that. If you're part of ownership and control, or you part of the backing of that business, or 5%, yes, or more, yes, you have to list yourself as a backer. If you're a sole proprietorship and you're the only person sponsoring that business, you are the backer. If you're any other kind of business formation, you may be one of many backers. But the person that submits the application does not necessarily have to be a backer. You can hire hire someone to do that for you if you're so inclined. So it's really hard to answer that question specifically.
Yeah. And so, anonymous attendee, you put a link in the Q&A. Not sure where you got this information from, but if you did not get this from the social equity website, this information, I would not use this information. Don't go doing your own research. Information on the income requirements, the household median income, and the how it's like I said, we did it regardless of household size. So we gave you the two numbers, 78,444, 235, 332 per year. Don't go anywhere else. Don't look for any information. Don't make this harder on yourself.
Jenny, if I can say,
Yep, Connell.
I just want to remind everyone that all the good information that Rod and Jenny have been providing, you can find all of these in the actual statute, which is available for everybody. Okay, it's called Public Act 21-1. All right. So you can look it up, you can read over there, you can see all the definition, you can see everything there. All right. So don't go around doing outside research to confuse yourself. And the best thing to do when you don't understand the statute is to retain a lawyer, a counsel, to be able to explain things like that to you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Here for ownership and control, does our social equity applicant have to show the same percentage for profit share as they do for ownership and control? That is a business question that you should ask your attorney or your accountant to answer.
There was a question here a little earlier about the backer application. There is only one backer application. Backers don't go through as many stages of application, so it's one application. You know, and the only difference between the applications is if that person is a social equity, he's looking to qualify as a social equity applicant or part of that social equity business. You know, the only variations there.
Okay, we are rolling up on the 1 o'clock hour. Our Lunch and Learn webinar is coming to an end. I will remind you that we have places that you can go to ask questions and places that you can go to research information, the latest, greatest, updated, most accurate information. dcp.cannabis@ct.gov is the DCP website. SEC@ct.gov is the Social Equity Council website. Emails, if you have questions and you would like to send a question to the Social Equity Council, connect at ct.gov/social, I'm sorry, that's our website, ct.gov/Social Equity Council to find information, and ct.gov/cannabis. So we thank you all for joining us today. I will be back here at 4 o'clock today. I will be answering questions, no presentation. I will be answering questions related to income. So if you have additional questions on income, how we calculated, household size, I will be here to answer those questions for you. There is a question here. There's one last question. Less than 300% of the state household income, not a set amount like you're stating. It is. So, you know, anonymous attendee, if you want to have more of a conversation about this to understand the income threshold, I'm happy to do that with you today at 4 o'clock.
Thanks, Jenny. Good luck at 4 o'clock today. Thanks everybody for participating in another one of our technical assistants. I hope you have a great day, and if you're in Connecticut, get to enjoy some of this nice weather.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you, Rod.